Hello, I'm Rebecca McLaughlin. I currently have a migraine. It's not super duper bad right now. Up and about, I've taken some medicine, I'm doing okay. But I'm still gonna work on my book tonight, and that's difficult. It's difficult to not feel well and still have to get work done. But my editor sent me back the first 3 chapters for me to work on, like 11, 12, many days ago, and I'm only halfway through. So I need to sit down and I need to finish it. Especially because tomorrow I'm going to be going to a small bookstore. Well, I guess today, in terms of what day this is, I'll be heading to Kalamazoo here in Michigan to go to a bookstore, BookBug, and sign some copies there. So if you want to order a signed copy, I will include the link below to their site. You can go check them out. So I get migraines like at least once a month. It kind of sucks. And sometimes, like earlier this week, they're debilitating and I can't do anything at all. So imagine me at my office, take my glasses off, I put my hands over my eyes, and I just sit at my desk for like 10, 20 minutes after taking Excedrin, just waiting until my brain can function, until my eyes can open, and I can keep working. So how do you work with a migraine? How do you work when you're sick or when you're not feeling well? Well, the truth is that sometimes you can't, especially if you're sick or ill or not well in a debilitating type of way. But because I get migraines pretty frequently and I get headaches even more frequently, I do have some strategies, and I will share them with you today. How to work when you have a migraine or a headache. Sometimes you're on deadline or you're working a day job and you just have to get things done. So I'm not going to go too much into migraine prevention. Obviously, there's things you can do to try to prevent having them, but if you have them, or if you have a headache or something and you just need to get work done, here are the things that have worked for me. So one, you may notice, is this headband. So a lot of times for me with a headache or a migraine, some kind of compression will help alleviate the symptoms. It's sort of like if you have a stomach ache and you hold your stomach, or a pillow. Sometimes you just need I just need something pressing on my head so that I'm not doing like this, holding it in a vice all day. This is a recent addition to my life. It's pretty cool. It's quite nice. But here's a couple other things that I have used. So I have a scarf that has a little bit of elastic in it. So a lot of times I'll just keep this in my backpack or on my apartment. And if you put it on like normal, I guess this is a tutorial, and then you pull it up over your head, you can then tighten it and tie it in the back and control that tightness level so you get the level of compression that you want. That's one thing that the elastic doesn't do quite as well, is that this is one level of firmness around my skull, which is sometimes the right level and sometimes it's not. So with a scarf or something similar, you can control that tightness, that compression in a way that might help you with your headache. Thing number 2, so my migraines are typically very light sensitive, which is not great, not ideal for working. Because I have to look at a computer screen. So one of my first lines of defense against a headache is to put on a baseball cap. Hopefully your job lets you do this. I work in an office with a pretty relaxed dress code, so I feel comfortable wearing this at my office, at my day job. And what it does is it blocks out the fluorescent lights overhead. So especially if you're in an office environment, or depending on what lighting you have in your home, bright white lights for me can be triggering for headaches and migraines, but can also make them a lot worse. So getting something with a visor that will block out all of the light above you is really, really helpful. It's also good maybe to pay attention of what kind of lights you have in your home. I have found that incandescents, which are like the yellower, softer lights, are much better for my eyes and my head as compared to the bright white daylights or the energy efficient white lights that exist. So one thing I will do, which my coworkers think I'm hungover, but sometimes it's necessary, is I will wear sunglasses. And you can imagine, recently one of my coworkers accused me of being Thelma and Louise because I will sometimes have a scarf on and sunglasses on. But to be honest, like, this cuts out a lot of light. And if you pair it with something like this, you're cutting out a lot of light. So for me, with light sensitivity being such an issue for me, it really, really helps. One thing to be cautious about though is, for example, these are polarized sunglasses. So I'm sure you probably just saw that I have like a big viewing monitor behind me. But one thing you may not know is that viewing monitor has polarized light. So I can't see it right now. Now I can. now I can't. It's a little odd. So it's something to be careful about before you buy sunglasses, or something to test out before you try working on your computer, because the sunglasses may cut out the light entirely, which is not great. By and large, for me, they help me reduce the light, which is really helpful. All right, am I super stylish and cool yet? I think so. I think I'm rocking it. When I have to work on my computer with a migraine, oh, boy does it suck, but sometimes it just has to happen. So obviously a quick thing to do is to turn down the brightness as much as you're comfortable with. Be cautious if you have light sensitive or eye strain like I do with my astigmatisms. It's important to make sure you strike the right balance. You don't want to have the light so dim that you're straining, but you don't want to have it so bright that it's straining. A lot of this just comes with trial and error. See what causes you less physical pain in the moment, and see what causes you less pain long term. Another thing to do is to test the color balance on your computer. I tend to go for a lower contrast, lower brightness level. High contrast, again, is very straining for me. And again, typically, depending on your eyes, you may opt for something with a yellower light tone on your computer, literally the color balance that you can shift, or something with cooler colors. Basically, just test them out and see what works for you. I know most of this has to do with color and light, but that's because for me with my migraines, it's a really big issue. So another key thing that I will do is that I will change the color of the page that I'm working on in Microsoft Word from white to like a mint green color. Now you can try different combinations, so like maybe a yellower tone with like a dark orange font. You can do some research online into color contrasts and what's easier for your eyes. A good mint green, sometimes a little bit darker, is what works for me. One note is maybe try to remember to turn that off before you send it to your editor. My editor was like, why is your book green? What are you doing? And I'm like, oh, eye strain. She was fine with it. I mean, it was a point of curiosity. It didn't get in the way of either of us doing our work, and she didn't mind, so I actually don't really put effort into fixing it or changing it back at this point. And of course, on the topic of your actual workspace in Microsoft Word, you can make the font bigger if you want. You can change the color of the font. If you're doing track changes, be cautious changing the color of the font because it might try to track that as a change. If you're tracking changes with your editor, typically you can turn the track formatting option off so that it'll still track insertions and deletions, but it won't catch all of the formatting errors. Otherwise, if you know you're about to change the color of the font temporarily, turn off track changes, change the color, turn it back on. Don't forget to turn it back on. There are some cases where I don't have that ability. So for example, when I got copy edit sent to me, they turned track changes on and locked it so I couldn't change it. And that's totally fine. They need to absolutely know where all of the changes are. And I could still change the color of the page, under like the page design options, but I couldn't change the color of the font without having everything be a track change, which I didn't want to do. And that wasn't a huge issue for me at that time. But if that is something that you think you're concerned with, you can always just say, hey, editor people, please do this thing to my file before you send it, and they're probably going to be okay with that. Okay, so that's a lot of the things I do in terms of treating the light issues I have with my migraines. Another issue that can come with migraines is sound sensitivity. So if you can find a quiet place to work, sometimes that's not possible. And what you may be able to do in that case is to put headphones on, specifically over the ear ones if you can, especially if they have noise canceling, because then you can block out a lot of that sound. You don't have to listen to anything necessarily, but it'll help block it out. I have also, for example, put in my AirPods or my earphones in and just not turned them on or used them for anything, just left them in. They do a little bit of a job of muffling the outside world, and sometimes that's all you can do is just to muffle the world a little bit. You can't control it, you can't silence it, but you can just put a little barrier between you and it. Another option in terms of sound is to find like a white noise app and just play that through your headphones very quietly. That is introducing more sound, but it might do a good job of cutting out the rest of the world. Now, sometimes a migraine will make it impossible for me to look at my computer or even look at my phone. In those cases, I try to just wait it out, go somewhere quiet and dark, pick up my work at a later time. Sometimes though, if I can't look at a screen, I'll try to do some handwriting. Depending on where you're at, using paper might be totally reasonable. If you're brainstorming or writing or even thinking about certain types of revisions, pen and paper might do you just fine. And it might be a good alternative if you just can't look at a computer screen. Another option, which might or might not work for you depending on what part of the process you're in, is to work on your computer with the brightness off. So like turn the screen off or put on a completely black screen or close your eyes, and you can just type with your eyes closed. Sure, you'll have a bunch of errors and issues to fix later when your brain's functioning correctly again, but it'll keep the momentum going now. Obviously, that won't work if you're doing revisions or editing or something where you need to be actively looking at the screen, but even in those cases, maybe sometimes you can look at it in short bursts and then think about it, keeping your distance from the machine, and then come back to it later. And then there's maybe some things you can do to treat your migraine while you work. So you can put ice on the back of your neck, or you can put a heating pad there, you can rub your shoulders, do some light stretches and exercises that might help alleviate some of that pain or the tension. And I will say this again from the bottom of my heart, that if you're in too much pain, or if your migraine or your illness or your headache or whatever it is gets in your way too much, take care of yourself first. You create best when you're healthy and happy, and if you can get to that place, do. These are just some tips that I've found, because if I get migraines all the time, sometimes I just gotta work through them, and I've found ways to try to help make that happen. Not always successful, and that's okay. All right, so those are the tips I have for working with a migraine. If you have more, tell me. I always am looking for more tips of how to function like a human when you're in pain, because it sucks and I hate it, but we live our lives and we do our best, right? Right. Your health and safety and security are the most important things. All right, well, I'm going to turn off all of these lights, sit in darkness for a while, and basically go work on my book for a little while. I'm feeling a lot better than I was earlier today. Thank you, medicine. Thank you, caffeine. Thank you, water. Thank you, compression headband, which this is very nice. It's so good. I love it so much. And I hope that if you suffer from migraines, that they go away. They really suck. And otherwise, I hope that you have a wonderful, beautiful day. Alrighty, thanks so much for tuning in. I appreciate it, and I appreciate you. I put out videos about every Saturday about my writing and my books. My first book, Nameless Queen, is on sale now at stores, Amazon, Barnes & Noble, things like that. Check it out. I'm working on my second book right now. It is slow, but it's happening, and it's good. I'm excited about it, and I can't wait to be able to share more with you. Here's a video that YouTube thinks you'll like, and here's my most recent upload. Stay healthy and stay happy if you can. Love you. Bye!